A ballerina's perspective, from performing with New York City Ballet and Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater to publishing poetry books and mentoring kids and teens. Join us in a weekly discussion with experts to gain mental health clarity and achieve growth and moral consciousness. Give our show a 5 stars, comment, share, and come along for the ride. Welcome to the Growth, Grace, and Gratitude podcast. Today, we're going to combine mental health tips with practical tools to start the journey of personal growth and self-discovery on the path to healing and addiction recovery with Sylvia Subirana, a clinical psychologist and the head of content development at MyDry30, an innovative app designed to help users take control of their relationship with alcohol. MyDry30 helps people discover greater meaning, happiness, and fulfillment in their lives so they can become a healthier version of themselves. Sylvia empowers people to develop healthier coping mechanisms and build supportive communities. She shares her insights on personal transformation, self-connection, and overcoming fear, as well as guidance for living a more intentional life. So what a beautiful thing you're doing for the community. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I try my best to help people achieve their better selves.
That's so inspiring because anytime we're going through struggles, it's so beautiful to have a community who kind of looks out for people and who can assist them. If you're ready to shake off that daily stress, come join us for online beginner, adult, ballet, and yoga classes each week to connect with the flow of movement and the art of ballet into perfect synergy. Come as you are and learn to love your body a little bit more and gain strength and flexibility with each class. All are welcome. Sign up at balletartsmovement@gmail.com. First class free. TeloVital supports focus, energy, immunity, sleep, recovery, and resilience. Start feeling better today on a cellular level with Zeolite, super green juice, micronutrient gut support, and more. Get over 50% off your first order for TeloVital. Link in the description of the podcast. And especially when it comes to integrating different tools, what are some tools that are available that you can talk about to offer people who are on the addiction recovery some support and guidance?
So, what we want to do is combine the work with the unconscious mind and with the conscious mind because everything that we can do consciously, it is powerful. Don't get me wrong. Everything happens because you want to, right? And that is conscious. But willpower can get you to not very far, right? Especially when it comes to addiction and substances, when the body is craving them. And even if you want to change the way that you act and the way that you use those substances, sometimes it's too difficult, right? Because the body is asking for it. So we combine techniques like journaling and reading and understanding what's going on in the body, which is conscious, with techniques that target the unconscious mind. And that technique is hypnotherapy. That's a technique that we use. And I believe that a lot of people are a bit hesitant to start using techniques like hypnotherapy because obviously hypnotherapy is very linked to hypnosis, and hypnosis has quite a bad reputation because of movies and theater in general. So when I talk about hypnosis, a lot of people say, but I don't want to lose power of what I do, right, of my actions. And I always tell people, you are always aware. So how hypnotherapy works is basically you go into a deep state of relaxation where you are still conscious of everything that's happening, but you are just in a state where you are open to suggestions, and all that noise from all the worries, problems, urges, everything that we have in our conscious mind just dials down the intensity. So then in that state of relaxation, we're more open to suggestions. So if I keep suggesting that you're going to make better choices for yourself, more aligned with your values and healthier choices and all that, because you consciously and with your willpower are already doing progress in that, um that is really combines with what I'm telling you and I'm suggesting you. So that is like, it has double the power, right? But again, if for example I would suggest something like, I don't know, rob a bank, you're not going to rob a bank because you don't want to do that. You, in your conscious mind, you're not telling yourself, I'm going to rob a bank, right? So you're only going to do with hypnotherapy, you're only going to do and pursue what you already want to do consciously, right? So the only thing that does is it gives you way more strength and way more power, because the way that it works is basically, to explain it quite easily, our brain cells, our neurons, create paths between them to create, like when we create habits or automatic ways to work and to behave, right? So what hypnotherapy does is create that alternative path between neurons that is the healthier habit. So little by little, the path that is drink alcohol when you're stressed, or when drink alcohol when you are having a bad day, you go to the other path.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It's so interesting, especially with hypnosis, thinking about the unconscious mind. I feel like, yeah, a lot of people who are actually spiritual do kind of incline towards that now, because they do feel like on this journey going into stagnation and repetitive cycles, it's so draining and it's so exhausting that something that seems like, oh, but woo woo or spiritual might actually break the cycle, because so often we're responding through our nervous system, which is fight or flight. Hypnosis kind of like leveling that out, so you'll be able to respond and react less to that like nervous system tick of anxiety
Mhm.
induced.
Yeah, so basically, as when you get into that hypnotic state, what we call trance, you are like, obviously all your nervous system just like goes back to peace, right? Instead of being in that state of fight or flight or survival mode that a lot of people live in, because the world that we live in just encourages us to live in that state. Yeah, getting into that deep state of relaxation and working with hypnosis really gives a lot of balance in the body, and it's just a very good break to then go back to your life and understand a bit more where your mind's at and what you want to pursue. And it's a very, very powerful tool because it also works without you even realizing. It's you just listening to an audio or the hypnotherapist, or for example the way that we offer it is through an audio, and it's 15 minutes, and by doing 15 minutes a day, you don't realize it, but your mind little by little changes. And in a world where everybody just wants things right now, because we are very impatient, um, working with this tool is very, very powerful, because even though I cannot give you results right now, I can give you results way faster than in any way that is only conscious, right? And I think related to what you were just saying, I think a lot of people that are more spiritual are way more open to doing the program without even thinking twice. They're like, yeah, I'm down to trying this, because it's being more connected with that inner part of ourselves that some non-spiritual people are a bit more afraid to be in touch with, because they're not um as comfortable, or as they don't really know what's going to happen, and they're a bit afraid of that unknown. So yeah, it definitely depends on the perspective of each person.
Unlock your best life with Soul app. Book a holistic wellness experience with a trained guide and start changing your life today with compassion practices, inner healing, food and diet, and so much more. Tap into a healthier and happier life with the number one purposeful living app in the US, the Soul app, link in the description of the podcast. Sanger Daniel's online seminar promoting a positive message of self-healing with bioenergy work together with live seminars and remote coaching. Use code BIO20 for a 20% discount for our audience. Link in the description of the podcast.
I encourage this to try hypnotherapy to everyone, not only to spiritual people, because non-spiritual people can really connect with that as well. And in the end, I always believe that everyone is spiritual, but maybe it's that, like the person that doesn't think that they're spiritual, they're just, they haven't really put much thought into it. But it's just a matter of preferences, really.
That's so true. And it's interesting how sometimes when people actually are avoiding trying something more spiritual like hypnotherapy, they're kind of reacting with fear. But isn't it so funny how when you do hypnotherapy, the possibility of actually like removing fear or healing a part of your fear from your behavioral patterns is actually one of the results. So that's so interesting how like we have that subconscious fear in a way that we want to kind of work to release that. And it's kind of like that's kind of the power struggle we have with our subconscious minds. Like we have to take those action steps to begin consciously to begin healing the unconscious.
Yeah, definitely. We have so many resistances in general. Like we are afraid of change. We're afraid of so many things that even if we know that something is going to be right for us or is a good tool, like hypnotherapy, or just reduce drinking, or many other habits that we know that are not good, just changing them is can be very scary. It can be, and we can just be in that state of, I know that I need to change this, but I'm not gonna, because this is the way that I'm living now is comfortable, even though it's bad, because a lot of people live in states of anxiety or depression or even worse, mental health conditions. um, they just they just don't feel like they have the power to change it, or because they just feel that fear conquers everything, right? So it's very very interesting when you start talking to people and tell them about different tools, because maybe they've even heard of them, but they always dismiss them before even trying them.
It's so true. I think this is a great shift to like dive into turning that guilt of, feeling insecure, feeling that fear into growth. How can we understand the shame's threat to self-esteem on the path towards, dealing with addiction in the most holistic way we possibly can when we're aware that there's such a big part of shame attached to that experience
Hmm.
of healing.
So a lot of people don't understand or don't think about the difference between shame and guilt, and many people use them as synonyms. But in the end, I always say that they're very very different, because shame is very attached with self, your image, whereas guilt is attached to the act, right? Or the thing that you've done. For example, related to alcohol, um, if I feel guilty about drinking, like for example, I have a drink, right? If I feel guilty, the sentence that I will think, or what I would tell myself is, um, this was bad. I shouldn't have done this, but always talking about the negative, how that was negative. But you're not talking about how anything like you are negative, right? You're just saying drinking alcohol was a bad decision. I shouldn't have done this because that alcohol has given me a hangover, or I did something that now I'm embarrassed about, right? So you are putting the focus on something external, whereas shame makes you feel like you're a failure because, for example, I would say I'm a failure because I drank last night, and I'm a failure because even though I was trying to reduce my alcohol intake, I just can't. So I'm not worth it. I'm not strong enough. So that message is negative about oneself. And that negative message that you tell yourself really really goes deep into that, into your self-esteem, and you really start to believe that. And if you tell yourself multiple times a week, because maybe you do different mistakes, not only related to alcohol but many mistakes in general, and that's the way that you approach mistakes, in the end you are going to feel like you are not enough. You're gonna feel like you are a failure, right? So you're just gonna be stuck in that negative self-talk. Whereas if we transform it to guilt and identify that that is something external, right? Like drinking alcohol had a bad effect on me, but that doesn't mean that I'm a failure. It means that I made a mistake, and that is guilt. Then that guilt can be used as a tool for growth, because in the future you can work with that, right? Like that can be like a like it can give you impulse to say, okay, I remember how I felt last time I drank. I feel very guilty with myself because it gave me a hangover. I did something embarrassing, blah, 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 blah. So now that I have the choice of drinking or not drinking, I'm going to choose to not drink. Those two different paths um, are key to identify in which path you're in the shame path or in the guilt path. Because if you're already in the guilt path, you're already there to get that powerful tool, right? To be on the contrary of what you're telling yourself. But then on the shame path, you really need to focus on getting that self-esteem better and believing more in yourself. So then little by little, all your habits related to alcohol can also improve.
That's you explain that so beautifully and so well, and it reminds me of, like, in a way, how our attachment styles are. And I feel like since childhood we've had attachment styles that have not always been secure or healthy. So we kind of want to attach to something, and when we don't have that self-awareness, like you mentioned, self-esteem in ourselves, and able to just healthily detach when something is not healthy from our thoughts, our minds, people, places, things, we just run towards the most accessible thing, seemingly, that we can just grab our hands on and attach to. So yeah, I think it's all part of understanding how we attach, and even those emotions and feelings of like shame and guilt, and to be like, to understand if we feel that, we don't have to judge ourselves so harshly and to criticize ourselves, but to just be like, oh, okay, I'm processing this right now. This is heavy, and this is actually really intense and extreme. Like, what can I do in this moment to help me through these feelings and emotions? And like you mentioned, hypnosis, yes, journaling. Journaling is a huge thing. I have a whole journaling like guidebook for people who are going through different kinds of trauma recovery and healing, and it's helped so many people. And I personally love journaling because there's such a like innocence, and there's such a like safe space in that kind of experience, where I feel like that can also help to unlock different kinds of knowledge within yourself to help you become more empowered to stop, unhealthy patterns like addiction.
Definitely, definitely. I always say that journaling is like talking to a friend, but without getting that the risk of being judged, right? Because the brain doesn't identify the difference between actually talking to someone or writing it down. So that is very very beautiful how the brain just understands well, it doesn't understand the difference, but and then understands how it can do certain types of bonds and connections between different thoughts or different emotions.
100%. When it comes to like being sustainable and avoiding alcohol for 30 days, that's the first part of the progress. And how can people sustain that progress more so long term?
That's a very good question, and I really think that it depends on the person because um, hypnotherapy can have can be a very very effective tool, and the longer that people use that tool, the longer the habits will be created, right? And the more benefits it will have. But again, it's really different from people that want to either completely quit alcohol or want to, after the first 30 days of no alcohol, they decide that they want to pursue moderation. I always say that moderation is way harder than quitting because when you quit, you know what it is. There's no choice, nothing. You need to go for that lemonade or that mocktail or that, your options. But when you are moderating, then every situation that you're in where there's alcohol involved, you need to choose. Am I going to drink today? Am I not? And you need to constantly be checking on those boundaries and checking on those choices that you make, because it's very easy to go back to old habits, right? So um the the longer that you use hypnotherapy for, the better or the more clear it will be the path for you, both if you choose moderation or quitting, but especially with that moderation that I was talking about, that it's sometimes a bit tricky. But for me, the thing that's the most key is to have the time to sit down and reflect of how you're feeling, your emotions, and why you're having the urge to drink, because that says a lot. Like, time can go by and can go, like, years can pass and months and years can pass, and if you have that knowledge of what used to make you drink and what is asking you, like, why is your body asking you to drink right now, um you can understand what your body is trying to tell you, right? Because there's something there. It might be that you're stressed at work, or it might be that you're not dealing with your emotions, right? That you're angry from something that happened, or you are sad because of a loss, or many different reasons. Many different things can bring us to feel like we want to drink to numb the emotions. But again, using alcohol to numb the emotions is not a way of processing them. It's not beneficial, right? Because they're you're not going to process the emotions. They're still going to be there tomorrow when the alcohol effects just pass, right? So the way to create the habit long is always to be in touch with yourself, and to have that second self knowledge, and to give yourself some time to sit down and understand what's going on in your mind and how you're living life, and if what you're doing is aligned with your values and your goals. Because a lot of the times, even if it's so ridiculous when we think about it, but a lot of the times we are not connected with our goals and with our values, and we're just living in autopilot.
Podpitch is the first and only software that finds, writes, and sends pitches to podcast hosts from your actual email address. Podpitch will make sure you get podcast bookings, guaranteed. Link in the description of the podcast. ClickFunnels easily build any type of online business and sales funnel in record time, no matter what your product, service, or niche, without any tech design or experience whatsoever. Try the ClickFunnels 14-day free trial. Link in the description of the podcast.
When we sit down with ourselves and say, okay, how am I living life? Am I enjoying this? Am I, like, when you start questioning things, you realize that maybe you've been living a life that you don't like for, I don't know, you've been having this life for months or even for years, right? So the key to any habit, really, and for having this for long term, is just being in touch with oneself and being truth to oneself.
It's beautiful, and it's such a great lesson to become more in touch with like our body cues. It's going to help us become more intuitive, and I feel like we often go straight off the path of like growth and ascension when we're not intuitive with ourselves, when we can't connect to that aspect of our consciousness. So it's such a great tip and tool, because that's going to help us be more intuitive in terms of like, even intuitive eating is a great topic. Listening to your body gives you such a great like strength to be aligned and to receive. We often do have an addiction personality style, especially like people who are empaths and who are craving connection and closeness and meaning. That's where it often leads to when we're not able to actually attach to like anything holistic and healthy. So yes, it's such a beautiful message that you are sharing. And where can people learn more about this journey and to connect with your content?
So the like the website is called My Dry 30, and we have the explanation of all the unconscious moderation or soberness that we help people achieve. So everything, all the program is explained there. And there's also like a contact form if they have any other questions, where they can just get in touch with us, and we'll be happy to solve any questions. Of course, they can have a look at the app. They can search My Dry 30 in the App Store or Google Play, and they will find it. And on Instagram, My Dry 30 app, we also post some reviews or some many different things going on. um, I I really, really encourage people to just try. As I said before, there are many tools out there, but sometimes we just get stuck in, I'm a bit, I don't know, I'm a bit scared of that one, or I'm a bit unsure of that change, right? And the best thing you can do for yourself is just give it a go. I'm not saying that My Dry 30 is the only tool out there. There's so many tools that are very, very helpful out there. The most important thing is that you are open to choosing any of those tools to try, because once you start trying, then it's just a cycle. Because when you start trying and trying to get better for yourself, you're standing up for you as a person, and that has a lot of benefits as well, because you are telling yourself that you're worth it, that you are worth having better habits, having a better path, right? So that gives such a positive message to yourself. And instead of getting stuck in that survival mode, or just like being surrounded by that fear and not actually in any type of change. So even though change can be terrifying, because yeah, it's sometimes it's so scary, um I always like to think of any big changes as it can be breakable into tiny steps. And I always try to choose the easiest tiny step for me, whatever is the most accessible. And then when you start there, then things little by little get easier, right? And we wouldn't realize, and after a week we would have done all these little tiny steps, and we would be somewhere, right? The change would have started. So I always encourage people to just break it down and make it as easy and accessible as possible, because that is a very good way to start. You have time, it doesn't need to be rushed, right? Sometimes we get into that thought that we need changes and we need them now, because again, we are very impatient. But sometimes things, like good things, take time. And getting healthy, getting your body to recover or to feel more connected, or in many ways, both physically and emotionally, takes time to little by little reconstruct the person that you were or that you want to be. So I always tell people, just have a little patience, you will get there. You just need time and work.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Sylvia, for coming on the podcast and sharing your positive message of inspiration and empowerment for everybody who is going on this journey of healing, and for sharing this process to help bring the unconscious to conscious, and hopefully people can become more aware of their own conscious mind and help them make better choices and uncover those unseen, unknown patterns, so they can also live a more happy and healthy life.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation.